The Nazi patrol barely spared a second glance at the man stumbling through the storm of gunfire on the island of Crete. Charles Upham ran with an uneven gait, one leg dragging slightly behind the other, his posture awkward, almost clumsy. To the Germans, he looked like an easy target, a wounded animal trying to escape the inevitable. A few sharp cracks split the air. Upham fell forward into the dirt, motionless. The soldiers advanced slowly, rifles lowered, already relaxed. But as they drew closer, something felt wrong. There was no blood soaking into the earth. No torn fabric. No sign that their bullets had struck flesh at all. Then Upham's eyes flew open. In that instant, the men realized their mistake. They had not shot down a helpless runner. They had awakened the most dangerous sheep farmer New Zealand had ever produced. Long before the battlefields of Greece and North Africa, before the roar of aircraft and the thunder of artillery, Charles Upham had been a quiet figure in the rolling hills of New Zealand. When he first appeared at the recruitment site for the 2nd New Zealand Expeditionary Force, officials hardly knew what to make of him. He was polite, reserved, almost shy. If they looked closely, they noticed one leg was shorter than the other, a lasting reminder of childhood illness that should have kept him far from any battlefield. This was not the kind of man they imagined sending halfway across the world to fight the most ruthless army on earth. But Upham would not be turned away. Others in the line whispered, doubted, smirked. He ignored them all. Recruiters studied his papers with uncertainty, yet again and again they heard the same quiet warnings from those who knew him. This shepherd, they said, was not to be underestimated. At school, his housemasters had written of a calm boy with a hidden fire, a man whose temper, once awakened, was fierce and unbreakable, whose word could be trusted more than steel. His professors echoed the same belief, telling commanders that this unassuming farmer might become something extraordinary. They were right. Assigned to the Canterbury, Otago Battalion, Upham never sought command. He didn't want authority. He wanted only to serve beside his comrades. Yet even as a private, he stood apart. He read the land as if it spoke to him, guided men instinctively, shared every burden. Within months, the stripes returned to his sleeve. Rank meant little to him. What mattered was that the war was finally calling. His first trial came in the deserts of Egypt, where the world seemed stripped bare of mercy. There were no trees, no hills, no shelter. Only endless sand, blinding sun, and the distant rumble of an enemy moving closer. He learned to lead men across open ground where death could arrive from any direction, to survive days in shallow trenches with nothing but grit and stubborn will. But it was Greece that would truly test him. By 1941, the Allies were collapsing under the weight of the German invasion. Upham and his battalion fought desperately, but the tide could not be turned. At last, they fled to Crete, one of the final strongholds left in the eastern Mediterranean. Then the sky filled with parachutes. Thousands of German paratroopers descended like a plague, drifting down with weapons already in hand. The airfield at Alamein fell into enemy control, sealing the island's fate unless it could be retaken. Upham, now a second lieutenant, was given what amounted to a suicide mission. With barely 24 men, no artillery, and only pistols and grenades, he was ordered to crawl deep into enemy territory and tear the airfield from German hands. He did not hesitate. For nearly 2 miles they crept forward under shellfire, hugging every ridge and hollow. Upham moved when the enemy reloaded, inch by inch, closing the distance until the Germans were suddenly fighting ghosts at pistol range. Grenades burst inside trenches. Bullets tore through bunkers. When the smoke cleared, one enemy position after another lay silent. Then Upham ran alone at a fortified house, slipping through machine gun fire, yanking a grenade pin with his teeth, and hurling it through a shattered window. The blast ended the fight inside. Again and again he advanced, clearing nests, weaving through bullets as if the war itself could not touch him. But the mission was already lost. Orders came to retreat. Upham wanted to keep fighting, but his men were bleeding, broken, barely standing. He set down his weapons and began carrying the wounded back through the chaos, lifting them onto his shoulders, guiding shattered units through collapsing lines. When he heard that an entire company had been left behind, he turned back without a word and ran 600 yards across open ground under enemy fire, pulling men out one by one while shells churned the earth around him. For days he moved like this, starving, sick, wounded, yet unstoppable. A bullet tore into his foot. Still he ran. 2 Germans chased him down, firing as he stumbled. He fell again, motionless. They approached, smiling. No blood. No wounds. Upham sprang up, seized the rifle he had hidden, and killed them both before they could shout. By the time he returned to Allied lines, he was barely standing, but the fighting was not over. At Sphakia, on the knife-edged ridges of Crete, he led one final stand, placing his men with the precision of a shepherd guiding his flock. From the heights, they shattered German attacks and bought precious hours for evacuation. Crete fell. But Upham walked away a legend. He did not want medals. He wanted the bullet removed from his foot. Yet the war would not release him. In North Africa, as Rommel's Afrika Korps thundered forward, Upham demanded to return to the front. At Minqar Qaim, he met a new kind of enemy, hardened veterans who closed in with terrifying skill. When retreat became impossible, he led with grenades, tearing holes in German formations, fighting hand-to-hand in the sand, dragging his unit free through sheer violence and will. At El Alamein, wounded and exhausted, he climbed Nazi-held ridges under fire, destroying machine gun nests and even tanks, until a bullet shattered his shoulder. Still he fought, throwing grenades with one arm until blood loss finally dropped him to the ground. The next day, barely able to walk, he returned to the line. Then a shell tore into his leg. This time, he could not rise. Captured at last, he refused to surrender even as a prisoner. He leapt from transport trucks, broke his ankle running, climbed fences in daylight, escaped again and again until the Germans sent him to Colditz Castle, the prison built for men who would never stop trying. Even there, he jumped from a moving train. They finally kept him caged until the war ended. When peace came, Charles Upham did not seek parades or glory. He turned down honors, went home, borrowed money, bought land, and returned to the life he loved most. He had faced empires and survived. But in his heart, he had always been what he started as: a farmer.